So I'm making this video because I just had like a thought or whatever, and I thought that it was interesting, so I wanted to talk about it. But um, yeah, so I mean, my room's kind of messy as you can see, so ignore that. But um, yeah, I was just thinking about how creativity and authenticity are going to be the new currency in the future, right? And some of you might hear that and be like, "Well, what does that mean?" Some of you might be like, "Oh, well, like obviously, like creativity and authenticity are important." But I think I want to share my viewpoint on it because it's kind of like a little bit abstract, but it makes sense, right? And I'm saying this because, and this is something that I talk a lot about on this channel, is like the system that we live in and how, like the American dream system, go to school, get a job, that you probably don't really like, but it makes good money, whatever, right? Like that whole system is just BS. Like, there's a multitude of reasons why it's BS, but this is another reason why it's BS, and it's because we don't really need it anymore. You know, like it made sense when it was like like when it first came into fruition. Apparent like of course, like I think it was like don't you're probably gonna have to fact check me on this. I think it was like probably 40s, 50s, 60s, like post World War II. Um, like I think that's kind of when the whole American dream really blew up. Um, but I think it's all BS because it was a system that was created to achieve and innovate in a way that we needed to get to that we're at now. I don't know if that makes sense, but obviously, that's how history works, right? You go through history, technology keeps being created, somehow sticks, turn into houses, they turn into airplanes, right? Um, but so obviously this system was created with obviously like the whole capitalistic system was created um, in order to achieve innovation and like industrial innovation. That's what I'm getting at. It was to achieve suburban and industrial innovation. That's why the system was created. That's why currency was created. That's why like all that was created because there was a scarcity for those resources, right? And so when there's a scarcity for resources and everything, obviously currency makes sense. Obviously, that kind of system makes sense because when you think about it, we're not really making money. We're just all trading it among ourselves, right? We're not really making it, right? So, um, yeah, and it made sense, especially when currency, like, currency has been a thing for a while, but this is gonna sound crazy, but currency is kind of like in a sense over with. The way that we look at it now, where you have to go and buy things and you have to pay to live and you have to do all these things. It's just it's getting old. Like that whole principle is old and it needs to be innovated. And so that's kind of what I'm getting at when I say creativity and authenticity are going to be the new currency because I mean when you look at like where we're at now, we don't need to really trade amongst ourselves anymore as much as we used to, right? Because there's not a scarcity for resources anymore. So, I mean, because you look at statistics like you're gonna have to fact check me again on this, but I am like pretty sure that there is more than enough houses to house the homeless, and so me thinking like, okay, it doesn't really matter. Just like, why would you not just house them? There's enough houses in the entire U.S. to house all the homeless population in the U.S. Let's just focus on that. We're not even on the entire world because we're just focused on the U.S. Like I don't know as much about the rest of the world, but I know the U.S. There is enough houses in the U.S. to house all the homeless. So why don't we do that? Because it's based on this whole system that has been created where there's a scarcity of resources, and so you have to pay in a, in an exchange for certain things. So you have to pay in exchange for a living, pay in exchange for these material things, right? But I don't think we need that anymore because there's no scarcity of resources anymore. We have more than enough in this world that we're in. We have way more than enough, you know? Like so I don't think we really need that. Now, we need it in like something like it in the sense that we need, at least a little bit of structure and we need, something to achieve, right? Because that's kind of part of like achievement, like, and achievement is part of fulfillment, right? So it's like, on the journey of your purpose, you have to achieve a little bit. That's what kind of keeps you going a little bit, or whatever. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, like, so yeah, we're not in the scarcity of resources anymore. We're not necessarily at the point where we are suburbanly, industrially, if those are words, like innovating, right? We we have a bunch of houses created. We have like all these physical systems created. Now what's really mattering is innovating, computer technology systems to to help with those industrial systems, those industrial and suburban systems. That's where we're at now. So in terms of like currency and stuff like that, I don't think that we need, you know, money, so to speak, like we have, right? Because we're not I think I'm kind of beating a dead horse, right? By continuing to say this, I think by now you kind of understand. If not, I'll, obviously probably make another video. But um, but yeah, so that's why I'm saying creativity and authenticity are going to be the new currency, because we're going into a world where it's like money doesn't really matter anymore. It really doesn't, because we have more than enough, you know? Like, we have more than enough things. Um, I guess I'm like talking from like a completely different perspective, and I'm trying to like mush it down and make it make sense. But like, not like, this probably doesn't make any sense to some of you, or maybe most of you. I don't know, but yeah, creativity is going to be the new, currency, and authenticity, because I've talked about authenticity before, but authenticity and creativity definitely go hand in hand, because it's like, okay, if you're being authentic, then you're probably creating something that you enjoy, right? So it's like being authentic is good because it's social currency, right? So it's social currency, and then that energy kind of jives into, like, achievable currency. And then creativity, it's like, if we obviously we're going to continue to create as humans and continue innovating, but I think it's going to matter more to be more creative than, oh, this person has this title, this person has this amount of money. Like, I don't think that's going to really matter in the future, because I think AI is going to develop to a point where we kind of go to like a dystopian, more dystopian society, not where like AI replaces everything, but where AI makes it so that, like, it's not, you don't have to pay to live, so to speak, and you can kind of just live, because there's no scarcity of resources, and it can kind of like generate things on its own and make it, free or extremely, extremely affordable, right? So I think that's where the world is heading, and so being more creative and being more authentic and really finding, creating and finding your own purpose is going to be more important. That's kind of what I was talking about in one of my last videos. So I think being creative and being authentic are, what you want to do. You know, like, keep creating, keep being creative, because, as we go into this world where it's not going to matter as much how much money you have or what titles you have and all this stuff. It's going to matter what you're creating and how you're innovating and how you're helping other people through your creation and all that stuff. But I don't know. I mean, that's really all I have to say. This is kind of a shorter video, but I don't know if any of that made sense. I'm probably gonna have to make another video, because that was kind of all over the place. But maybe some of it made sense. Um, but yeah, I guess main takeaway: be creative, be yourself. It's things that I always say, and things that I'm super passionate about. Being authentic, not not going living your life by the world standards, living but then by your own standards, and being creative and creating things that you enjoy and things that you believe in. So that's what I'm gonna leave you with. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. See ya.